What's going on, football fans? Welcome back to yet another annual L2 Sports predictions video for the National Football League.
The way this works, we go through the schedule, the entire NFL schedule, and we just pick who we think is going to win that game. However those results end is how they end for us, and then we are now revealing what those teams' records are, how they stand in the standings, if they make the playoffs, and how far they go in the playoffs. We take turns on who's going to be whatever. You'll kind of understand as it goes on.
But enough talking, let's get straight into it. Alright, this shouldn't come in as a surprise. The New England Patriots come in last because there's way too many unproven pieces both on the roster and the coaching staff. Though I do have to admit, I'm pretty surprised about the Dolphins ranking third in the division. I still have them getting 11 wins and going to the playoffs, so that comes to show you how I feel about the AFC East and the Dolphins. I'm very scared to give the New York Jets the benefit of the doubt. But with Aaron Rodgers coming back, they should be good. Fingers crossed. I wouldn't say it's a shock necessarily that the Buffalo Bills are predicted to win the division here, though it kind of is now that Stephon Diggs is gone. But Josh Allen, I think, is just that good of a quarterback to carry the team to win a division. New era in New England. It looks like it's going to be a complete transition from what they had before. Just too young of a roster, not enough strong pieces on there, rookie head coach. They're not going to be good this year. The Buffalo Bills themselves are also going through a bit of a transition. They lost a few key pieces, including Stephon Diggs, but ultimately I think Josh Allen is going to do another late game carry with the team on his back, and it's good enough to squeak them into the playoffs. What? I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Aaron Rodgers is not going to get hurt a second time, right? I know, I'm the biased Dolphins fan, right? Because I have them winning the division and getting the number one seed. I'll admit the number one seed is probably a little takey, but I think that this roster is a little underrated, actually, with Odell Beckham, Kendall Fuller, whatnot. And to be fair, they should have won the division last year. I think with the Bills losing some parts and the Jets still being unknown, I think they can win the division at least. Every year, there's always those teams that made the playoffs the year before and definitely have the talent, at least on paper, to go to the playoffs the next year, but miss. And I think that's the Cleveland Browns with a bad quarterback situation. I have absolutely no fucking idea what to tell you about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh, shocker. They have Mike Tomlin, and they'll get a winning season, and they'll be competitive, and they may or may not make the playoffs. I have them missing. And even if they made it, they'll still lose. Okay, so we know who this Ravens team is. They just got a lot of talent. It's just, can they actually do something in the playoffs? Congratulations, Bengals fans. You're the third in a row AFC North team that has a narrative that we basically say every year. Joe Burrow's on the team and they should make playoffs. Yeah, man, the Steelers are in such a weird spot the last few years. I mean, it's basically purgatory, but in a winning record way. At least it'll be fun this year with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, I guess. Still with a winning record at 9-8, this team fought and scratched and clawed their way, but just fell short of the playoffs, the Cleveland Browns. I do kind of like this team on paper still, but I just don't know if Deshaun Watson is the same old guy. I know I only have the Ravens at 11-6, but just remember they're playing in a tough division and conference, so they're probably not going to look that great record-wise, but this should still be a really good football team that will be very tough to play in the playoffs. One thing I've come to learn with the Cincinnati Bengals, as long as Joe Burrow is on that team, just don't count them out. The only reason they were out last year is because he wasn't on that team. But now that he's back, they'll probably be back.
I gotta admit, I'm sleeping on the Tennessee Titans roster a little bit. They actually have some talent, and maybe Will Levis takes a big leap in year 2. But there's still a lot of progress to be made for the Titans, I suppose. While I do have the Indianapolis Colts falling just short of the playoffs, I really don't think them making the playoffs is that big of a shock. They almost made it last year even without Anthony Richardson. But Anthony Richardson coming back in, he showed a lot of promise last year, should show a lot of promise this year. Though they have 10 wins, the Jacksonville Jaguars fall just short of the playoffs. But I love this roster and the quarterback Trevor Lawrence, but with Doug Peterson, I don't know. I just don't know if I believe in him. The one thing that concerns me about the Houston Texans is that schedule. Lots of good teams to play. But I do think they have a good enough roster to make the playoffs.
Really, the only thing that's going to be interesting about the Titans this year is just to see if Will Levis is any good. Which, actually, I kind of am interested in. I think people are not really talking about him enough when he honestly kind of played all right. Man, it's just funny because when you go back a year ago, they were like the easy favorites to win this division. And they even went 8-3 last year, so they should have done it. I don't know what it is. It's just maybe it's Doug Peterson, but everyone just seems to not believe in the Jaguars. I'm probably sleeping on the Colts a little bit, actually. I kind of had to redo my predictions because I was like, yeah, Anthony Richardson might actually be good. Let's not forget about him. Now, they don't quite make the playoffs, but I think they will be a very scary team to play. Now, the record's going to look pretty low for the Texans with 10 wins, but they do got to play a lot of really good teams. Now, luckily for them, they are one of the really good teams, which is why they'll still win their division and be a really tough out now that they got a Super Bowl caliber team, honestly.
Perhaps probably the most boring team in the league this year is the Denver Broncos. Like, okay, you got Sean Payton, you might be a little cute and competitive. Maybe 3 wins is a little low for them, but who cares about the Broncos? I think this team is a year away from being a playoff team. They just need a quarterback, and if Antonio Pierce is not the guy at head coach, they need a head coach. But otherwise, the Raiders are progressing with their roster. I think the Jim Harbaugh signing was actually pretty good, and this Jim Harbaugh-Justin Herbert duo might be good in the future, but I do think there's a lot of learning curves to be made this year. 'Cause I knew you were trouble when you walked in. I don't know the lyrics, but the Chiefs win the division.
Well, yeah, Denver's obviously not going to be good. But, it's just going to suck. Their defense might be fun to watch with Christian Wilkins in there now and Max Crosby, but that offense, I'm kind of crying thinking about the thought of watching it. They got to upgrade there. Now, I won't be surprised if this team makes some noise and maybe even makes the playoffs, but I think they got a little bit more to go with this new Jim Harbaugh era, but with Justin Herbert as your quarterback, you never know, man. Alright, so we're happy for Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury. They got a head coaching gig again, and then Cliff Kingsbury is back on an NFL coaching staff. Maybe Jaden Daniels is pretty good, but I don't think the Commanders will be very good. Yeah, 8 wins is pretty overachieving for the New York Giants. Brian Daboll, I think, is that good of a coach to make them overachieve. Otherwise, though, this roster is definitely kind of a... Mostly, I predict that this is going to be the same old Cowboys year where they make the playoffs and, they show their talent and they're, selling tickets because their offense is entertaining and their defense is entertaining. But there's a small part of me with all the tension going on that this might be a team that misses playoffs, but we'll see. The Eagles will be good. So, Brian Daboll's a good coach, but I think this roster just kind of sucks, man. I have them with 5 wins. I feel like that's pretty fair. Now, even if they only have 5 wins, I kind of like the Commanders a little bit this year. Not that much, but I think Jaden Daniels has some potential with some of the weapons he's working with, and I actually kind of think Dan Quinn deserves another chance. So I'm kind of excited to watch Washington for once. It's probably just going to be the exact same Cowboys team we've been seeing, where they're going to be like a one-and-done team in the playoffs. I think the funny part is just seeing that the Cowboys fans obviously know at this point, because none of them are showing up to their training camp or anything. So everyone knows what this team is at this point. So their collapse at the end of the season was so funny, even though I'm a Dolphins fan. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about late season collapses. But anyway, as funny as the Eagles' late season collapse was, I still don't think we need to ignore how good this team actually is and how well their offseason was. Philly's going to be a great team. I gotta admit, 5 wins it's kind of low for the Vikings because they have such a good roster and coaching staff. It really just comes down to if the quarterback play can match the excitement, I suppose. Okay, so we've heard this before. The Bears get a new quarterback and they show a lot of potential for the future. But I really think that this time this is legit. Say what you will about how Caleb Williams is as a person, but I think he might be the real deal. I, in my heart, feel like the Packers will win the division. But for now, I have them falling just short of winning the division, but I still have them making the playoffs. I loved Jordan Love last year, and I just think he's going to show promise this year. Okay, so I don't think I need to explain too much here. Everyone knows that Dan Campbell and the kneecap biting mentality for the Lions is working for them, but how far can they go with it? I think that this team has good weapons for a young quarterback like JJ McCarthy to work with, and we'll see if maybe even Sam Darnold kind of has like a Baker Mayfield type resurgence, but for the most part, man, I don't think it's going to be a good season in Minnesota. I wouldn't be super stunned if the Bears made the playoffs, but I have them close. I have them with 9 wins, which shows I think that them trying to get Caleb Williams and leaving Justin Fields was the right move. But we've also never seen a good Bears quarterback literally ever, so we'll see. Whoa, what? Lions at second place? Maybe. I mean, teams that go through heartbreaking losses either in the Super Bowl or close to the Super Bowl, I've noticed a trend. They kind of just lose a bit of their confidence afterwards, so maybe that happens here, but they're still 12-5. They're still going to be an awesome team. Packers usually start pretty slow, I'll admit that, but I think that they're going to have what it takes to finish strong by the end of the year, and honestly, man, the Packers might be a pretty good freaking team this year. Well, Panthers fans should at least hope Bryce Young improves this year, which I think he will. And that's that's all I can really say about the Panthers. Okay, so it's the NFC South. I wouldn't really say the Bucks being third place is a bold take necessarily, but I don't know. I don't really think Todd Bowles is a good coach, and Baker Mayfield I think will lose a little bit of that magic, but I don't know. It's the NFC South. It's not that shocking. All right, I just have one thing to say to the Saints trying to continue this era of they have a Super Bowl window. You don't have the window! This is the fourth time on L2 Sports where I predicted the Falcons to make the playoffs. Don't you dare disappoint. I fucking hate the Panthers because every time you try to hype them up in some sort of way, it just crashes in your face. So I don't think they're going to make playoffs or anything like that. I don't think anyone thinks that. But I think Bryce Young will show some promise. Is that too much to ask, Panthers? Congratulations, Saints fans. You have the most boring team in the NFL because you're still sticking with a window that closed so long ago and a quarterback who was never that good, but everyone hyped him up to be. They're in purgatory. Okay, you were fun last year, Buccaneers. You know, like everyone thought you were going to be a team that missed the playoffs, but then you actually made it because Baker Mayfield turned out to be all right. I don't think it lasts that long, though. I think they'll miss the playoffs this year. Last year, I could not have been any more right about a quarterback in my life. Like, sorry, Falcons fans, but I said that Desmond Ridder was like the only reason I wasn't super confident in them. All they needed was a good quarterback. They should be getting that with Kirk Cousins, so they should be a good team this year. Coming in with 7 wins and being a lot more competitive than a lot of people probably think they're going to be is the Arizona Cardinals. I don't think they quite make the playoffs, but I do think they're maybe a year away from making the playoffs. But even if they made it this year, it's not that shocking. This is like the team where I just weirdly have a vibe that I can just see the Seattle Seahawks as a playoff team. For now, I just think the other NFC West teams are better than them, but I just feel it that they could be. What's annoying is that I always seem to be wrong about this team. I got the Rams making the playoffs because it's Sean McVay, right? And I don't know, I guess I'm just expecting them to make the playoffs because of him. Oh goody, another Kyle Shanahan playoff year. When are you going to do something in the Super Bowl? I know I only had them at around 6 wins, I want to say. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think the Seahawks are still going to be a pretty tough out with their new head coach. I think their defense is going to be pretty tricky to play against, and Geno Smith is still playing pretty good for what it's worth, so they won't be in the playoffs, but they'll be all right. Now, it is a Sean McVay-led team, so they're still going to get 9 wins, but they fall just short of the playoffs. I think them losing Aaron Donald is actually pretty big for this team. They're going to have to learn how to fight without him, and I think that they're not going to be able to adjust in time. I know, right? I'm batshit insane because I have the Arizona Cardinals making the playoffs. Slow down, because sometimes as soon as a quarterback gets their number 1 receiver, they completely take off, like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, for example. So don't sleep on Arizona. From the sounds of it, I think the Niners kind of got to win this year because they're going to be in cap hell next year. They're not going to be able to keep a lot of their players. They know that they can do it. We all know they can do it. But will they do it? All right, here we go. The NFL playoffs. The Miami Dolphins go to Houston, Texas to face the Texans. And this already sounds like it'll be a really entertaining game. And honestly, I kind of went back and forth with this one. There really couldn't be a clear winner here. But due to the Dolphins not really winning a playoff game in a while, I do think the Texans are just going to win this game. And plus they're home. Yeah, the momentum I think is for the Texans. Okay, so another good matchup here. The Baltimore Ravens traveling to Buffalo, New York to face the Bills. I don't know if this is like a hot take necessarily because the Bills are known to be these playoff strugglers. But you know who else struggles in the playoffs? The Baltimore Ravens. I just don't think the Ravens have it in them to win in the cold Buffalo weather. And I think the Bills will at least win this game. Alright, so here we go. Part 5,000 of an Aaron Rodgers versus Patrick Mahomes game. And it seems like we just never get a chance to see it for some reason. But I predict that we see it here in the playoffs. The Jets are an interesting team, and I would root for the Jets to win. But, I mean, it's the Chiefs. I just think they'll advance. All right. There's a bit of a theme here with these AFC playoffs. Another just really, really exciting game. This will come down to the wire. And this is also a revenge game for Stephon Diggs. Oh boy, here we go. I got the Bills winning. It's kind of scary to predict the Bills to go far in the playoffs at this point. I just think Josh Allen has more experience than CJ Stroud, and that will ultimately be the deciding factor here, but we'll see. Oh my goodness, these quarterback matchups in the AFC. Joe Burrow versus Patrick Mahomes. We obviously know that Joe Burrow is capable of beating Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. And though I do have the Bengals having the 1 seed, I don't think they will advance here, though. I do think Patrick Mahomes is simply just on his way to become the GOAT of football, and he makes yet another AFC Championship game. All right, another Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes playoff showdown. And if I remember correctly, I think I have the Bills being home in this one. So they host the AFC Championship game. The Bills are just in for one more. Oh, can we finally beat Patrick Mahomes? We literally are hosting the championship game. Sorry, Bills fans. It just won't happen. It's time for the playoffs, and the AFC has so many good matchups. I looked at every one of these going like, oh my god, that's a great game. But yeah, Bills at the Bengals, 7 seed versus 2 seed. Come on, Bills fans, you have to admit, even you're going like, yeah, just say it, we're gonna lose. Like, yes, you're gonna lose. Bengals advance. God, man, I went back and forth with this one. Ravens at Texans. I went so back and forth. I feel like the Ravens are the better team, even if they never really play like it anytime they go to the playoffs, but I actually went with the Texans. I really thought I was going to be higher on the Ravens, but I just think Texans are going to win. They're at home. Ravens always struggle in the playoffs. Just give me the Texans. I know we mentioned that every time we have an Aaron Rodgers versus Patrick Mahomes matchup potentially, but come on, it's also because we just never get it for some reason. So hopefully we actually get it this time. I'm not gonna lie, I actually was gonna have the Jets go on a deep playoff run despite being a Dolphins fan, but I just saw that their first matchup was against the Chiefs. I was like, do I really got them beating the Chiefs? Not really. So the Jets do lose, thankfully. 3 seed at 2 seed, Texans at Bengals. Gonna be an awesome game, man. And the Texans, they were kind of another team that I was like, do I think there's like Super Bowl potential? I mean, I do, but like, am I gonna go that far? The answer is no, I'm not quite gonna go that far. I'm gonna pick the Bengals to win here, but I would not be shocked in the slightest if they win. And right when I get the Dolphins as the first seed, I see that their opponent is the Chiefs. And it would be so fucking nice if we won a playoff game for the first time since 2000, but I'm looking at it in the same way I saw with the Jets, so laugh it up, Jets fans. I guess we're joining you. We're going to be humiliated for 25 years now. No playoff wins for the Finns. Chiefs move on. Patrick Mahomes versus Joe Burrow for their third straight AFC championship. Well, I mean, not third straight, but you know what I mean. Like, third AFC championship matchup. Gonna be a fun one. This time I have it in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow does play very well against Patrick Mahomes, but I do have the Chiefs advancing. I think they're determined to get a three-peat, so I think they at least make it to the dance. We got literally an NFC playoff rematch from last year. The Los Angeles Rams at the Detroit Lions. I really felt like picking the Rams to win this game just because of the frustration of losing to them last year. I don't know. I think Dan Campbell has what it takes to just keep on keeping on, I suppose, with the Lions. Be honest, Cowboys fans, do you think you'll win this? Sorry, Falcons fans. No, I don't have us winning to the Packers, unfortunately. It's nice that we hosted a playoff game. But Kirk Cousins just doesn't really do that well in the playoffs. We haven't made the playoffs in so long. And the Packers, I think, just have a better quarterback. And yeah, I just sadly don't think we'll make it. But it was a good year regardless. This should be a pretty good game. The Green Bay Packers traveling to Philadelphia to face the Eagles. I think this is going to be one of the closest playoff games of the year. Maybe could go down as one of the most entertaining playoff games you'll ever see. I mean, both offenses shoot fireworks and both defenses have potential. I just think the Eagles have a better roster overall and have the home field advantage, and they advance. Another NFC playoff rematch from last year. The 49ers actually travel, though, this time to Detroit. And I think this will be another close game. But I don't know, man. I don't think Detroit really has it in them to beat the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan, for what it's worth, he at least carries the team to a lot of deep playoff runs. It's just, can he actually get that Super Bowl ring? Alright, this probably isn't too shocking, right? The NFC Championship game is the 49ers traveling to the Philadelphia Eagles. NFC Championship game we saw not long ago, actually. And the Eagles won last time, but I do think the 49ers win this time. I just think Kyle Shanahan, at least, with all of these playoff losses and Super Bowl losses, at least he still has that dog in him to want to keep going and get this goal done, which I can appreciate. And they just have a good roster to win this game anyway. Time for the NFC playoffs, starting with the 7 seed at the 2 seed. Dallas Cowboys at Philadelphia Eagles, and you thought you were going to escape one of us saying, oh, we love a divisional matchup. You know who loves a divisional matchup? The Eagles fans, because they're like, oh, we get the Cowboys in the first round? Well, we're moving on. It'd be fun if the Cardinals won, but I don't think they're seriously going to go into Green Bay and beat the Packers. We'll see. I think this would actually be a pretty fun game, Detroit at Atlanta. I think the crowd would probably be there in Atlanta. They'd be pretty hyped to see their team in the playoffs for the first time since 2017. I think it'll be a close game, but I think the Lions are going to advance, so you'll have to wait slightly longer, Falcons fans. Trust me, I'm a Dolphins fan. I know what it means to wait a long time for having a playoff win. Packers going to the Eagles, gonna be a good one, gonna be a fun one, but I think this is going to be the classic Packers having some sort of either late collapse in the playoffs or just probably get completely blown out. I think the Eagles win this game. They advance to the NFC Championship. Lions at Niners, the rematch of the NFC Championship game, and boy do Lions want this really badly, but honestly, so do the Niners. They've fallen short so many times in a row recently. They are hungry, and I think they're just a straight-up better team than the Lions. So, sorry, Lions fans, another heartbreaker to the Niners. But I will say the Niners have a thing with giving heartbreaking losses to their fellow NFC teams in the playoffs. NFC Championship game. This is to go to the Super Bowl. The Philadelphia Eagles versus the San Francisco 49ers. Gonna be a fun one. And I'm sorry, Niners fans. I'm sorry, Kyle Shanahan. I don't think you're gonna win. You come very close. But I think the Eagles are going to advance, and we get another recent rematch in the Super Bowl with the Chiefs and the Eagles. All right, it is the Super Bowl, and it's a Super Bowl rematch of last year. Yay, we all love rematches. Some of us don't, but some of us do. I don't know why I had to say that. But anyway, okay, so we're expecting a similar game from what happened last time. Do I have the Niners winning it this time? Or do I have the Chiefs just making history because Patrick Mahomes is on his way to be the GOAT and have a three-peat? Unfortunately, this time, I do not. Kyle Shanahan, congratulations, you get your ring. In my predictions, at least. Super Bowl 59, Chiefs and Eagles. It's going to be a fun one. I keep saying that in this video, but it's going to be a fun one. It's probably going to feel pretty similar to the last time these two played in the Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens. Eagles obviously are a really good team, especially on paper. But it just seems so obvious, man. Like Patrick Mahomes going to get a three-peat. First quarterback to ever do it. Yeah, they have a dynasty. They're the first team to get a three-peat. It just seems so obvious. I just can't bet against it. But that's just what we think. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like this video, check out more of our stuff in the description below. We'd really appreciate it, but we thank you for checking out this video regardless. But let's all have a great football season regardless of who your NFL team is, and just have fun watching our team.